Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Healthy Tampa Bay podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kerry Reller. And today we have two special guests today, Christina Morales and Alyssa Dangler. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. We're happy to be here.
Awesome. Christina, why don't you tell us a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I'm Christina Morales. I am a board certified behavior analyst, and I am the owner of Piece of the Puzzle Behavior Analysis. I started Piece of the Puzzle back in 2017, and we currently service children and families in Indian River, St. Lucie, Pinellas, and Hillsborough counties, with an expansion to Seminole and Volusia County in the spring of this year. We work with kids with autism, ADHD, and other varying developmental disabilities. In addition to being a behavior analyst and a business owner, I am an autism mom. My son, Vinny, was diagnosed with autism when he was 5. At that time, I was told by doctors that there was a good chance he was never going to be able to functionally communicate and that I would need to care for him into his adult life. He was actually placed in a classroom because he couldn't communicate with other kids who couldn't talk, and most of them had autism. And then Alyssa was actually Vinny's teacher back then. I just knew in my gut that I needed to do something to change the trajectory of his life. I didn't really want to accept what the doctors were saying. And I did a lot of research and came across applied behavior analysis. And Vinny began, for short, we call it ABA therapy. He began that therapy at around 5.5. And fast forward to today, he's 15 and he will talk up a storm with anybody. He loves socializing, and he actually helps out over at Piece of the Puzzle with the kiddos. They really love interacting with him, and he enjoys it too. He's on grade level in school. He's even learning how to drive. So he really, truly is my passion behind Piece of the Puzzle and what we do. So yeah, I'll let Alyssa talk a little bit about herself.
So my name's Alyssa Dangler. I'm a BCBA as well, and I'm now the regional leader of Pinellas and Hillsborough counties. Like Christina said, I met her through her son, and then we both got into the field and we worked together as clinicians, and our paths kind of separated us and brought us back together. We worked separately for a few years, and then I've been back working with Piece of the Puzzle for about 2 years now.
It's such a fun story. And I always love to hear the inspiration of why someone started their company or how they got into whatever profession that they're in. So that's, super important for yours. It's so enlightening to hear about. So you guys are kind of all over Florida, which is great too, tackling all the different markets. But what exactly is ABA?
So ABA stands for Applied Behavior Analysis, and it's really just the science of behavior and why we do what we do. And then we take that why and we use it to come up with solutions and make socially significant changes in people's lives by not only decreasing that problem behavior, but also, more importantly, increasing other skills like communication, social skills that are age appropriate, self-care tasks, things like that.
So why is that particularly important for someone with autism?
Typically, there are a lot of skill deficits when it comes to autism. A huge misconception is, though, that a lot of problem behavior that comes along with certain diagnoses, autism, ADHD, things like that, that they just engage in problem behavior, when really the why, like I said, a lot of the times is it's a communication deficit. Teaching them how to use their words instead of using that problem behavior to communicate is, I'd say, what, Christina, like 99% of what we do half the time. Yeah. So again, I think it's a lot on that problem behavior, but in reality, what we're really doing is building a lot of replacement skills that they may have due to their diagnosis or may lack.
Yeah, I think too that so many people hear behavior therapy, behavior analysis, and they think that it is just about problem behavior. And it's such a small piece of it. We really focus on positive reinforcement to help shape these behaviors. But you have to give a skill in order to decrease a problem behavior. So it really, like Alyssa said, is about teaching new skills. And that's how they can then also function more independently. Our goal is to get them to a place where their quality of life is improving along with the family's quality of life, because it can be, and I know firsthand as an autism mom, it can be isolating as a mom when you don't know how to handle these behaviors.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously the goal, like you said, it should be to be able to independently operate as they get older, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you guys help your patients, or tell me a little bit about the services that you provide at your company?
Yeah, so ABA is such a vast, as much as we're all are using the same science, there are companies that are maybe more clinic-based and have more of a clinical approach. We're kind of the opposite of that. I'm really passionate about naturalist play-based therapy. We have 2 locations, one in Vero Beach and one in Port St. Lucie, Florida, but we don't even call them clinics. We call them centers. They're really set up to emulate like a daycare classroom environment, and we work on teaching skills through play so that the kiddos we're working with are excited to come see us. We want to make sure it's fun for them. At the end of the day, they're kids, and we don't want to take that away from them through therapy. And especially with ABA, we see some kiddos up to 30 hours plus a week, max 40 hours a week, but that's a lot. And parents hear that and they're like, whoa, I don't want my child to just be in therapy their whole childhood, but we really explain to them, they love it. We're doing so much play with them. So we focus on that naturalistic play. Over in Pinellas and Hillsborough County, Alyssa is doing only in-home and school-based services, as well as if a family's having difficulty out in the community, maybe they're going to Publix and they really can't navigate that. We will go with them to Publix to work on the skills in that setting. Restaurants, we'll go and sit and have dinner with a family if that's where they're having that difficulty, because at the end of the day, we just want to improve the quality of life for the children and their families. So we'll provide the services in home where we'll work on, like Alyssa said, the daily living skills, communication, keeping the parents in the loop of what we're working on, because at the end of the day, we're going to leave and we could have them doing something with us there, but that's not the goal. It's the goal that the parents can also perform the same thing we're doing, as well as teachers in classrooms. Our ultimate goal is to get us out of a job with that client. We don't want to be with them forever, so we really want to be able to train the people that are working with the child how to do it. Our tagline at Piece of the Puzzle is pulling all the pieces together, and that's truly what we do by collaborating with everybody.
So if you have someone that goes to the center for 30 hours, is that child in school as well? Or
so typically if they're coming to just the center for 30 hours, then no, they're not. And that's usually that early intervention piece. Alyssa used to work in a more clinic-based setting. Alyssa, do you want to talk more about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of laws and things that have gotten improved over the years where you're entitled to the therapy you qualify for. So it's a lot of pick and choosing depending on the age sometimes. Like Christina said, that early intervention age when they don't have to be in elementary school, I mean, you can bring them to the center all day and they don't have anywhere else they need to be. Eventually, the state wants them in school and things like that. There may be an age, like a pre-K age or VPK, where it's, do you want to do therapy or do you want to go to VPK? And then it's kind of up to the parent to choose, and depends on their skill set as well. Are they able to go to a classroom and sit in a chair for, however many minutes at a time? So do we need to build up skills before we send them into a classroom? That being said, the older they get, obviously they need to be in school. That's their responsibility. And so that's why we prefer the more naturalistic approach, to where we would just go to school with them. When they're little and you can get them in the center all day, that's great. Like Christina said too, though, we actually shape our centers to actually be set up like a classroom. You don't walk in and see little clinical tables everywhere where a kid's having an appointment. All the kids are engaged together. There's circle time centers, but really you're kind of training them for when they enter that classroom.
so how important is it to start an early intervention? And can you tell me the process of how that works? Was the child referred by the pediatrician? What sort of things did the pediatrician notice? And then how did they end up working with you?
Early intervention is the key. I mean, my son was diagnosed later in life. Years ago, it wasn't as the awareness that there is now. I feel like wasn't there when he was younger. But that early intervention, we were seeing kiddos getting diagnosed as young as 18 months, 24 months, and getting started with them then. We love that. Like, we just love to be able to get in because there's not this history of where problem behavior has been reinforced. Parents don't know what to do. Their kids tantruming, they're giving them what they want versus trying to figure out how can we teach them to communicate. So the earlier we get in is definitely the better. As far as how parents access services, it can be completely transparent. It can be tricky. There's kind of some red tape you got to get through, but at Piece of the Puzzle, we are really passionate about helping families through that. Kathleen does all of our intake calls, and she will spend time with parents explaining how thorough the paperwork needs to be. Typically, a pediatrician will refer the child to a neurologist a lot of times, and the neurologist does a full comprehensive diagnostic evaluation. We help families try and figure out, we'll give them lists of neurologists we've worked with. Also, psychologists and psychiatrists can also do those. But typically with that early intervention age, it is a neurologist. We'll have parents sign a release of information form, and we will contact the doctors for them. Because again, going back to me being an autism mom, I know how overwhelming it is. You find out your child's been diagnosed. You are kind of going through the stages of like, whoa, this isn't what I thought my life was going to be with my child, but it really isn't a devastating thing. Once you start getting the services your child needs, that child will become your biggest inspiration in life, and you will learn so much about yourself and life in general through them. That is the biggest thing, is getting that paperwork from the doctors, because again, we're seeing these kids for so many hours. To pay out of pocket, it adds up fast, so getting the insurance coverage is key for the services.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to say for the listeners who may be a mom or a new mom or something like that. So I don't currently see that many children, but obviously I know like when the training was, and you mentioned 18 and 24 months, and that's typically when we'll give the mom that screening questionnaire that has all those questions that, things to look out for. And then I'm assuming if they screen positive, then they would be referred on to psychiatry. And I did not realize neurology did it as much, but that does make sense. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you typically 18 and 24 months, we do it twice. And if it were something to be concerned about, then early intervention, like you mentioned, is a key. So that's great that you guys are getting those patients early. I think you already answered my question on how do families access the services. And I'm grateful, I guess, that some insurance coverages is doing that, but obviously insurance is a nightmare for everybody lately. So you always got to navigate those hurdles. So I know there are a lot of other ABA companies out there. What sets you guys apart?
I would say, me personally, Christina and I worked together and then worked separately for years, but we always stayed in contact. I watched Christina start this business. I watched her build it. And I think what really drew me back was the attention that's paid to the staff. I was kind of a small fish in a big pond for a long time, but I really feel like a person at this company. I do have a young daughter. Christina's so supportive of me and my family and things outside of my life, and the leadership team as a whole, not just Christina. We work really well together, but we literally use ABA on our staff just like we do on the kiddos, because why wouldn't we? But we take data on not just their performance as an employee, but their performance as a clinician, and we provide them with positive reinforcement, and we focus on setting goals. And it's nice to just work in an environment where everyone's striving to be better. We're always working to see what we can do next to improve the company, and it's a good place to be,
Yeah. And the way that I always look at it as a business owner, I'll interview people that maybe didn't have a great experience, or they're scared to make a mistake. And I personally make mistakes. And when I make them, I learn and I grow and I become better. And so the type of owner where I'm like, make mistakes. It's okay. We all have to make mistakes. And when you foster that kind of environment, people are more likely to feel like they can ask questions, that they can come to you when they do need support, because they feel supported all the time. And if they're happy in their work environment, they're going to provide excellent services to the kiddos, and that to me is where it all comes back to. I always want every family and every child within this company to feel like they are getting the quality services that I would want for myself and my son back when he was getting ABA. As an autism mom, I constantly talk about that side of it to my team too. It's not easy when you have a child with a disability. So having that compassion, you can't just look at that child like, okay, these are goals I'm working on. This is a family, this is a child, and we have to have that compassionate therapy for them so the families feel a part of everything we're doing.
Super important. Yeah, it's definitely family involvement completely, right? So we mostly were talking about autism, but you mentioned you guys also see patients with ADHD. So is it anything different? Are they coming a little older, or how does that work?
So we joke all the time, again, back to insurance. It's really just what insurance will approve. It's a science. We use ABA on our therapists. You can use it on yourself if you set goals for yourself, but we're restricted by what insurance will approve with a diagnosis. They actually didn't even used to approve ADHD, and they do now, which is great. There's a lot of other diagnoses out there that could probably also use the therapy. But for right now, I think just autism and ADHD, but at least it is expanding.
Yeah, there is actually some others with Medicaid. Commercial insurance right now only covers autism, which I hope that changes, but Medicaid will also cover oppositional defiant disorder is another one, or if a child does have a severe speech delay and that is causing, there has to be problem behavior there, basically. Insurance doesn't care if there's just skill deficits, there has to be problem behavior, but typically, if there's skill deficits, there's going to be problem behavior because it's typically somewhat of communication, like Alyssa said earlier. But as far as their diagnosis for us, we don't treat a child that is ADHD, oppositional defiant disorder, autism any differently because we're just looking at behavior. And that's what drives what we do is what is the behavior, what is the function of the behavior, and then we go from there and determine how we're going to put a treatment plan in place.
Are there any differences, like different behaviors that you might see between the two diagnoses?
Typically there is always some sort of communication deficit, and there's some more rigid behaviors, I would say, with autism, where things have to be a certain way. If routines are changed up, that can really throw them for a loop because they like to know what to predict. And we always have some things in place to help them with that because obviously change is inevitable. So that's something that we really focus on. If a child has ADHD, that can definitely look a little different, but this also happens with all because it's a characteristic of autism. ADHD and autism a lot of times go hand in hand, but with ADHD, it's a lot of times, let's just have them sit for 30 seconds. That's where we'll start. We start super small. It's not sit for 30 minutes and do this, so a lot of times with the little ones with ADHD, they're kind of just jumping all over the place. And we want to get them focused on meaningful play for a little bit longer of a period of time, because that's what's going to be expected of them when they get into the school setting. That's how we really look at things and structure the goals. If you have a child who's oppositional defiance disorder, that can be tricky because they want to do the opposite of what you're asking them to do. So again, it's so individualized. We do a whole assessment at the start of services and determine the functions of each one of their behaviors. And then we go from there, depending on what the function is and what's important to the family. That's how we'll structure goals that we work on as well, or which problem behavior we're going to target first.
But it is group, right?
So we set it up where we'll have at our centers where there's group, but it's a one-to-one therapist.
Okay.
It's one-to-one. So Alyssa and I are board certified behavior analysts, and then our line therapists are registered behavior technicians. They're often, people just say RBTs, and they're the ones doing the bulk of the hours, and the BCBAs are writing the treatment plan, supervising the RBTs, parent training, parent communication. It's kind of the BCBA is the lead of the case, and the RBTs are the ones doing the main service hours. But yeah, it's one-to-one. It can be small groups. There are times, insurance has a code for that where it could be, but most of the time we're focusing in on that one-to-one, but we'll pair them in a group to work on social skills. It's just that each kiddo has their own support from their therapist.
Gotcha. Is there anything else we didn't touch on that you guys want to mention about your company, your ABA, or anything else?
I think We really covered it all, I would say. I mean, if parents are interested in receiving services from Piece of the Puzzle, they can visit our website. We have a services request form on the website. They can just fill that out. They don't even have to call. And once we receive that, Kathleen will give them a call and just talk through the next steps of paperwork that is needed to get services go. So our website is POTPBA.com. And then our Instagram page is POTPBA. And then we're also on Facebook as Piece of the Puzzle Behavior Analysis.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll add all that to the show notes then.
Awesome.
All right. Any last words to the audience, Alyssa or Christina?
Just thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you, Kerry. Alyssa and I could talk about this for hours. We're so passionate. We love it. And if you are a family that, you just found out your child's been diagnosed and you aren't even sure where to start, you can just call us too. Kathleen is so amazing at just being like kind of that ear for parents to be able to be like, I don't know what to do. And she'll help them navigate. If we have a wait list, we will give parents other company names that they can go to, because our goal is to just get these families going with services. So
Awesome. I love what you guys are doing, and I love the story behind your company. And thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today.
Yeah, thank you, Kerry.
Thank you.
All right, tune in everybody next week and we'll have a new show.